Hey everybody, it's Callie, and today I want to talk a little bit about OCD awareness then and now. I think like a lot of people, I really fell victim to those earlier stereotypes and those portrayals of people with OCD that we used to see on TV. And they were kind of the ones that made their way, I think, into the collective consciousness. And they were like people that were a little bit quirky, I guess, and they didn't really like dirt. They were, I guess, what you would call like a germaphobe, and they would do things like pick up stuff with napkins or handkerchiefs, and that was really all we saw. It didn't really go deeper than that. And while that can be something that an OCD sufferer deals with, I think the problem with those portrayals, it really left off two key things, I think. And the first one is the distress that comes along with why you might want to be clean or why you might be afraid of germs, or the background for why that's important. And then the other thing is that it goes a lot further than that. It's not just about germs, or it's not just about being clean. There's so many ways that a person can be affected by OCD. So I don't think I ever saw anything more than like a mild disgust or like an irritation when somebody had to deal with whatever thing they were picking up that was dirty, or whatever they were touching or whatever. And I never, until recent years, I never saw a portrayal of OCD that was something other than that idea of being clean or being tidy or being organized. I didn't really see that until much, much later. So how did this affect OCD awareness at the time? I think for some of those reasons that I mentioned, people had a very limited idea of what OCD was. The scope for what they saw OCD as was very, very small. So they didn't really have an accurate picture of what somebody could be suffering with. No one was seeing the intense stress or doubt or the mental gymnastics that somebody might be going through because of their obsessions and their compulsions. So why was this a problem? Why were these kind of skewed ideas of what OCD was? Why was that an issue? I think one of the main issues is that these portrayals really kind of glazed over the suffering and the intensity and the negative feelings and emotions and just the pain that OCD can cause. I mean, it's not been named one of the most debilitating conditions to live with for no reason, right? There's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of anguish that comes with suffering from OCD. Also, I think this kind of skewed perspective of what it's like to live with OCD really negatively affected OCD awareness, because people were really delaying treatment and delaying diagnosis because what they were experiencing didn't match what they were seeing. They might have been saying, wait a minute, I'm not really clean, I'm kind of messy, my house is a mess, you know, I don't like touching dirty things, but I guess it's not that bad, I'm not organized. So they're saying, well, that can't be OCD then, that's not, you know, something that I'm experiencing. So it really kind of took OCD off of their radar, even though that might have been the thing that they really needed help with. So now I think we want to ask ourselves, has this kind of skewed idea of what OCD is endured? Has that idea stuck around? Has it remained unchanged? And yes and no. I think yes, in some ways there's still a lot of misunderstanding, but I think for a long time now that tide has really been changing, and there have been huge strides made to bring awareness to OCD. I think now there is a much broader awareness for people talking about OCD and talking about what it's actually like suffering and talking about how it might affect your life. And I've even seen more mentions of it in TV and movies and even music in ways that are, I think, pretty accurate that I didn't see years ago. I didn't really see this happening, you know, even a decade ago. It's really changed so much in a very short amount of time. And of course, that doesn't mean that everybody is on the same page. And I see a lot of content out there that isn't really accurate. I see a lot of comments on that content that aren't really accurate either. But what is really encouraging, and what I see a lot more, I think, is that people who are aware, who are in the know, are using those instances as opportunities to educate people and to bring awareness to what OCD is actually like. So now there's a lot more opportunity for discussion, and I think social media has really played a huge part in that. And social media, I mean, relatively speaking, is young, but it's this thing that has allowed people, when you think about it, it's really amazing. Like, you can take a few seconds and just make this little video snippet. You can post it and you can have it seen by thousands of people all over the world, and this pretty much can happen instantly. And this is something that we weren't able to do even just a couple years ago. So I think the way that we are consuming information and the way that we are spreading things and spreading news and spreading awareness about whatever we're talking about, it has really changed, and that awareness can now really spread like wildfire. I have seen so many videos talking about taboo subjects, or like the taboo parts of OCD, and it's tagged as OCD, and I see comments saying, wait a minute, this is OCD? Like, I do this. This is something that I've experienced. And of course, this is not to say that every single thing that we see means that we have every single affliction that it's attached to, that we have, you know, to now self-diagnose all these things. I think it can get a little bit overwhelming when we think about it this way. But I think for somebody who is really struggling with something, who is really suffering, now has a new doorway to explore and say, wait a minute, this is something that kind of resonates with me. I wonder if this is something that I should maybe look more into. And then they might be able to move forward in that way, in a way that they weren't even aware existed before. I think one of the gifts of the time that we live in is the accessibility we have to one another, that we can share our experiences with people all over the place, all over the world. And we have the internet, and we can just, you know, connect that way. We also live in a time that we can have access to treatments that maybe we couldn't really access before. That's all changing very quickly too. And one of those things that can be treated now more easily because of this accessibility is OCD. And part of that is thanks to the strides that NOCD has made to make treatment accessible. NOCD therapists are trained to treat OCD with ERP, or exposure and response prevention, and are here to talk about what it's like living with OCD. They are using treatments that are actually going to help people suffering with OCD see results. If you're ready to try NOCD for yourself and get a handle on your OCD, you can go to NOCD.com or treatmyocd.com today to start. On that note, I'm gonna get going, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.